to Rensha, and I'm the author of Due the Diligence. I'm super excited to be here with Fay Rodríguez, the former U.S. Special Representative for International Labor Affairs. I'm so lucky that I have incredible people like Kelly in my network who are experts in what they do. But what we're going to do today is just share a little bit about Kelly's background and kind of her thoughts on business and human rights. But Kelly, welcome. Thank you for doing this with us.
Thank you. Happy to see you here.
Absolutely. How did you get into this work?
So I started labor rights actually in college when the cafeteria workers at my school organized a union. But I've been doing labor rights. My first union job was in 2005 with the Service Employees International Union in New York City, working with their janitor and building service workers. And really since then had the chance to do domestic enforcement of minimum wage overtime laws, and also work with unions internationally on solidarity campaigns, and spent a couple of years in Bangladesh, actually, working with lawyers and union leaders and garment workers to improve labor rights there.
This is so important because so much of this work needs to be ground truthed, and Kelly's experience being in the field, being with the workers, is so important to inform human rights due diligence in general and what that means in practice. From your perspective, Kelly, like, what do you see as the greatest opportunities or like gaps right now?
So we've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't. We've got years of experience with enforceable agreements where unions and companies come together to make sure that there are standards and practices throughout a supply chain. We know about worker-driven models and how effective they can be. So I think now is really a great opportunity for businesses and for unions to partner to really make sure that we've got effective, robust models. And we know labor rights are an enabling right, and that when you can bring democratic worker organizations to the table, it can have ripple effects in the workplace, but also in the community and the economy. It brings democracy into the workplace. It makes businesses more resilient, supply chains more sustainable and resilient. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for stakeholders in the private sector and also civil society and unions in particular to make real progress. Like finally start to reverse forced labor in global supply chains, start to raise the floor for conditions in the global south and the global north, right? And so there's really an opportunity. I mean, there's an awakening sort of that we're all really tied together, that workers in Germany or in the US and South Africa, that like these supply chains mean that we all need to be building rights and protections and better standards for all of us.
Yeah. And speaking of progress, like what does good look like? Like what are some practical examples that like maybe someone out there who's not as familiar with these issues could like kind of see hope?
Yeah. Well, so one great model we've seen is the Accord, International Accord for Worker Safety. It started in Bangladesh, and now is expanding to other countries. It's a model where, again, unions and brands came together in the fashion industry to make sure that workers had safe workplaces. And now they realize you can't have safe workplaces if workers can't organize a union. So that's also a big part of what they're trying to do now as well. But there's also models, the Road Transport Due Diligence Foundation here in Europe, in the EU, has now for a couple of years done really fantastic work ensuring human rights due diligence for migrant workers. I talked about that earlier on a plenary. Fantastic model. But there's others. We've seen trade laws that have been able to make sure that big brands, importers, companies are able to make sure that the suppliers and the workplaces at the bottom of their supply chain actually respect rights. Workers can organize free from intimidation, harassment, and threats, right? And so there's trade models like the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. There's trade laws about blocking goods made with forced labor. We're seeing more and more due diligence laws with teeth, right? With real meaningful expectations for businesses and companies, as well as governments, to make sure that stakeholders have a voice and a role in ensuring standards in supply chains.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing those concrete examples. I know that you have a new exciting role.
Yes.
I'd love to hear more about that.
Thanks. I get to lead a new center, and it's really people are happy here. It's really just about bringing together unions and businesses who want to have high standards in their supply chains, who want workers to have a seat at the table, and to have really robust and effective human rights due diligence. And so global union federations that, want to support workers throughout supply chains, in different regions, wanted to have the support for workers, help them understand and utilize the tools out there, whether it's due diligence laws, whether it's trade laws, to really have strategic engagements with companies. And I'm really excited to be partnering with workers on the ground again.
Yeah, that sounds like a super interesting initiative, something that I think is needed right now. 2025 has been a really chaotic year. It's been a very interesting year for, I think, all of us. But to end on a high note, like, what are you excited about?
I'm excited about the new year. Being able to see workers are always going to find ways to organize, ways to try to improve their lives and their communities. And so being able to be a part of supporting those efforts is really exciting and humbling for me. So
that's great. Well, thanks for sharing your expertise, your perspective, and your insights to our audience. If you want to learn more about Kelly and her work in this new Worker Rights Center, feel free to follow her. But we hope that some of these reflections will help others think about how to do better and what good looks like in improving worker rights and global supply chains. Thanks, everyone.